I constantly get these kinds of comments on my videos. You know, I talked about in that first No Agenda Here video, you know, Kevin Smith's wrong take on Masters of the Universe. And I looked at the character designs for Tila, even the designs which have her in her quote unquote traditional costume, which isn't traditional at all. They've covered it up. They've done this puritanical woke thing where they have to make sure we've got a flap covering her rear because we can't see anything untoward there. When did the left woke ideologues become Puritans? Like, it wasn't that usually the other way around, but no, that's what they are now. We'll talk about that later. And I talked about how, even though the colors are right or whatever, look at her body design. They have made sure to only accentuate the same parts of her body that are accentuated on He-Man, because the agenda there is there's no difference between a man and a woman. Don't you dare show us something like an hourglass figure, because that would symbolize and signify the iconic feminine. And that's what Tila is. She's a warrior. She's a she-warrior, no doubt, and a very formidable, very powerful warrior. But her methods of her warrioring are feminine. They come across as feminine. That's what she's supposed to be, the feminine force on the battlefield. Absolutely. And there are different types of feminine. She's the warrior feminine, whereas somebody like the sorceress is more of the nurturing, kind of wise, feminine. And we'll get to those. But they showed that, in the character designs. And the comments I got refused to acknowledge that this is a cartoon. And they started in with you're so stupid. So everybody has to look. So every woman out there has to have an hourglass figure. Is that what it is? Or she's a warrior. Her arms would be ripped. She does all this work and working out. She would look like that. She would look like that. Well, first of all, there are problems with those arguments right away. And maybe we'll look at those first, and then we'll get to the basic argument there. But the first one is, no one's saying that every woman has to have an hourglass figure. We are talking on the symbolic level. When you're in a cartoon, when you're dealing with idealized forms and whatnot, with the symbolic, it's just fantasy, not reality. Secondly, no, not every warrior woman. I mean, go look at women in the army or women on the police force or whatever. They don't all look like Ronda Rousey. That's not something that they just would have to look like or anything. It's from an agenda. They want to show no difference between men and women, no difference between men and women. Then I received comments which say, I've been called racist a number of times, just flat out racist, because I didn't like the cross racial casting of Lieutenant Andra. She's from a character from the comics and whatnot. I think she might have been in the 2002 series, but they cross racially cast her as black because got to have that diversity, And I talked about that, how that's silly. This is from there's already some diversity built into the stories. If you want more, then you create new characters. You stop cross racially casting established characters, but also the fact that you are dealing with a mythos here that draws from both Gaelic and Germanic sources. Not a lot of Africans up there in the Gaelic, Germanic, ancient mythic times. Not a lot of Asians up there. Not a lot of so forth and so on. Doesn't mean they can't be in there. They are there. Claptrap, I think, is in the new one cartoon as well. I don't know if they have Jitsu or not. But no, that's not good enough. And I was a racist for saying that. And then, what's wrong with wanting to see myself, represented on the screen? Well, nothing's wrong with wanting to see yourself represented on the screen in general. Everything's wrong with you wanting to see yourself represented in any given incarnation. Is it right for me to complain that the Black Panther movie only had one white guy? Come on. You didn't have one white hero. You couldn't have more. I need to see myself represent. No, that's stupid. That's stupid. The movie was set in Africa. That's what it was. You look at these franchises and where they come from and what the kind of mythologies and what kind of backgrounds they're coming from. Now, the problem that the woke ideologue will say is, well, there's not enough. There's not enough, representations of like an African. Okay, then go write them. They don't want to do that. That means they have to work. That means they have to actually write good stories with characters that actually resonate with people to draw them in and make the story stick in our culture and mythology. They should do that, right? I would love to have more African-based mythic tales or epic fantasy tales, from Africa and whatnot. That'd be wonderful. African, lineage or influence in there. That'd be amazing to have. They don't want to do that because they don't actually know how to write good stories. They're not concerned with that. They just want to put the agenda there. And the shortcut is to strip away, take the characters that you already know and love and slap the black sticker on it. Make up Captain America's a black man now. Up, Thor's a woman now. Up, they don't want to do the work. So that's what they're doing. If you showed them why, hey, this is actually wrong, they respond with anger, rage. You're canceled. You're a racist. They throw around those words because they don't have an argument for you. They just rather lob insults at you. It's the ad hominem fallacy. Attack the person instead of the argument. They can't understand or accept that something like He-Man, a cartoon for children, is fantasy. They are the very foundation, the fundamental first step in the ideology that they have put onto their thinking. And like I said last time, these might be intelligent people otherwise. I've known some, especially this is why it comes from academia, very otherwise intelligent people, but they dumb themselves down. They become pretty stupid because they put this ideology on, and it's like blinders. They're not allowing themselves to see the whole story. They start from this foundational stone of the fiction, the stories need to contribute to the perfect world that I want to see around me. So if they want to see a world of body positivity around them and no one ever being encouraged to have a healthier body or whatever, well, then the way we do that is we start with the story. We start with the mythology, and we go in there and it's pretty insidious because it's, on some level of how the cause and effect works, it's right. I mean, mythologies do have an effect on us. It'll never have the effect they want it to, but they start from that. So even thinking something like He-Man, I mean, come on, He-Man, a children's cartoon, which became more through the comics and in the 2002 series and all of that, but it's clearly it's fantasy. It's fantasy. So these stupid comments like, well, she would have big arms because she would be doing, I don't care. First of all, I don't think that's naturally what she would have in a realistic sense, but stop bringing realism to your argument. This is fantasy. It's like the whole, it's not realistic that Superman would do X, Y, and Z. It's not realistic that he'd fly around with a cape on and be impenetrable to bullets either. You know what? It's fantasy. Stop it. Stop with this incessant need for everything to be real. Part of it is both in terms of the woke ideologues and in terms of people who just want to deconstruct everything. Part of it is that I need to bring down that standard. I don't want to be shown a higher standard that I have to live up to. Whether that's a Zack Snyder Superman fan, who like, well, I can relate to his Superman. Well, yeah, because he's a horrible person. Sure, you can relate to him. There's no good or nobility there. There's a little bit. Well, that's easy to achieve. Anybody can achieve that. He's no standard for you. Of course, you want to, easier to relate to because you don't have to raise yourself up. You don't have to be better. It doesn't tell you to be better. And the same thing with like the woke ideologues, body positivity, for example, that I mentioned. We don't have to be told that we need to work on our bodies to be beautiful and attractive and healthy. No, let's just make sure that everybody thinks that being 500 pounds overweight is beautiful. No, it's not the way this works. But that's what they've got this, the fundamental foundational stone of their ideology is that they want to see the world they want to see around them needs to be reflected in our fiction. So even something like He-Man, come on, it's a children's cartoon. And I've heard people say it's so unrealistic what she looked like in the filmation. It's so stupid. It's so unrealistic. Where do you get that it's supposed to be realistic? It's about a world of sorcery and super science, takes place on a fictional planet of Eternia. There's a magic sword. There's a talking tiger. Where do you get off claiming that there should be realism in any of this? It's just the notion that they would try to argue that. They can't tell. And you can try to argue this and you try to show them and point this out. And it's just like you're talking to a wall. It'll just go right over their heads. Well, makes sense that she would have big arms because she's a... Oh my gosh, did you hear anything I just said?